So it was really that spirit of let's forget about how higher ed does business and let's think about this as a corporation and what would a marketing team at Google do? They would make a big mark so that they would get the
Yes.
city buzzing talking about their brand.
Today, we're headed to Cincinnati, the University of Cincinnati to be exact, Bearcat territory, to explore one of the boldest brand activations in higher ed right now. My guest is Dr. DéRecco Lynch, Assistant Vice Provost for Enrollment Management at the University of Cincinnati. When he stepped into his role, he walked into central marketing and said, "We need to take back our city." That moment sparked a campaign called Our City that brought together athletics, online programs, admissions, and more around a shared vision for storytelling and student impact. DéRecco, let's start there. You walked into central marketing and said, "We need to take back our city." What did you mean by that, and how did it light the spark for everything that followed?
Yeah, so a couple things. One, so I'm a Uber. I love to take Ubers. I know how to drive, but I'm an Uber person. So I meet a million people every day via Uber, and I would ride my Uber to work, and I would just say, "Hey, what do you know about the University of Cincinnati?" That summer, I might have taken at least 200 Uber rides, and all 200 people were pretty much like, never really thought about it. I've never visited campus. Honestly, I didn't even know the campus was up here because I've never rode through this area. So that started to give me a sense of like, we're doing a lot of work, but we're not as embedded in the community as I think we perceive we are. And then just naturally, when people would come visit us, they would be like, I had no clue the University of Cincinnati was actually like located downtown Cincinnati. So I was like, you know what? No one should ever be able to visit and not know we're here. And our community should know that we are pillars that they can take advantage of beyond just enrollment. So I went to central marketing to my girl, Ashley, and she's an AVP over central marketing. And I just said, we need to take back our city. Like, we need to own the city. People need to know we're here. What can we do? And she was like, I'm with you. We're going to figure something out. I kid you not, 3 weeks later, the billboard became available and they hit me back up and they were like, do you want to start now? And I said, let's go, let's figure it out. And that was sort of the spark that brought us, started activating the different areas.
Already, this is the most interesting focus group I've ever heard of, DéRecco. And also the fastest campaign launch, 3 weeks, and we're talking billboards, we're getting it up. But I think what people are really going to be interested in, a lot of pieces of this, but a really important piece is the sort of breaking down of silos of this, bringing the different units together. That's really hard in higher ed. So how did that happen, and how critical was it to the success of the campaign?
Yeah, so I would say that was literally the most important part. One thing that I worked, and I know we'll probably talk a little bit about Salesforce later, but one thing that I learned at Salesforce is when you have alignment at the top, your impact can scale faster, you can go to market faster, you can serve students faster if there's alignment at the top. So first, the conversation started with central marketing and I, but coincidentally, central marketing had been talking to UCO separately. I have been talking to UCO separately about how do we just work together better. And through these separate conversations, we were like, let's just get in a room and talk about what are we trying to accomplish. And there's a lot of new leaders as well. So we got in the room and we ultimately was like, we want to create UC fans. That's kind of our goal. How do we do that together? And where do we start? And we were like, let's start with the billboard. The billboard can be our first group
It's like the
activity.
inspo. It's like the inspo for all
Yeah,
the rest of it. Okay.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we looked at it. We was like, let's pilot this relationship with the billboard. Let's work together and see how everything goes and let this be the kickstart. And that's really what it was, is us just getting in a room, being transparent about how we feel about each other's offices, whether that's, hey, I feel like y'all lean too heavy on alumni and we're focused
Yeah.
on online, or I feel like y'all lean too much first year. We were able to get it all out on the table and walk away with, we just want people to engage with UC. Like That's the common thread. Regardless of population, the goal is to get people to engage. And that was sort of the foundation that broke the ice. And I also think it broke down the barriers of mistrust and allowed us to kind of trust each other, sort of creating that baseline.
You found that common ground.
Yes, yes.
And I know that you have talked about this alignment of 80,000 people at Salesforce and your experience with that. So how did that play into what did you learn from your experience at Salesforce that you were able to bring to the table with this campaign?
So I was tapped at Salesforce to pretty much be our chief engagement officer for how we're engaging with historically Black colleges and universities, which we had never done at the company before. Although there was the recruitment side of the house, the sales side of the house, the government side of the house, everyone did everything in pockets, but we weren't showing up as one company, one organization. And I got to partner directly with the CEO, Rob Acker, at the time. And ultimately, the feedback I got early on was get alignment with all of us in the room before you start anything. Do not start nothing until you have alignment at the top. And then when you have alignment, you can run. So I focused my energy on getting that alignment at the top. And then when it was time to go to market, we could just run, even if something had never been done before, if something was against compliance, or you know how we can get with like, that's not the process. But when you have that alignment at the top, it gives you that executive sponsorship to say, I don't care how it has worked in the past. The CEO is on board. We have to come up with a solution to better serve our communities. And I pulled that same concept here. I was like, I don't want to run around exploring partnerships or brand activations if nobody's interested, because then it's just, I might as well just go do pop up at a Starbucks and set up a table. So I really wanted to focus on the vice provost of enrollment management, the vice provost for University Online, our chief marketing officer, as well as our executive director in athletics, and have a conversation with them around, do we want to work together? One. And they were like, yeah, we do. I was like, cool. I was like, two,
Yeah.
are we excited to try something new and take back this city? And they were like, yes. And then I was like, three, which is the biggest question, will y'all help me find budget? Because I don't, none of this matters unless we can
Unless,
find
yeah, you got to
budget
fund
to
it.
do it.
Yeah.
So they were like, you come back to us with a point of view, we'll find the dollars. So check boxing those three things, I think really, again, empowered us as a group to really run and be creative with this new campaign.
Well, I hear from your experience this idea of bringing action to it as well, and
Yes.
quickly, because a lot of times in higher ed, we're not putting anything out until we have the entire strategy, every single tactic, every single piece of creative like outlined, and everyone agrees on it, and now we can run our campaign. But you really all kind of jumped right in and just started testing some stuff and did it a little bit more action oriented rather than getting slowed down by all the planning.
Yes. And and that's the one thing I appreciate about this group. So I know my background, while is higher ed, I'm addicted to the startup type of atmosphere. And
Yes.
one thing that I know in a startup is we fail fast. That is the goal, is like try it. If it doesn't work, move on. But that's how you own the market. So it was really that spirit of, let's forget about how higher ed does business and let's think about this as a corporation. And what would a marketing team at Google do? They would make a big mark so that they would get
Yes.
the city buzzing talking about their brand. And then it helps that Ashley and Joanne, they, even though they're not from the startup space, they think like that as well. But they're also just very competitive. Like they're like, we want to win, and we know to win, we have to be innovative. So I think we brought that like we want to win slash startup experience. And then that really allowed us to sort of execute very rapidly. Because again, I think we were aligned within at least 30 days before we started like just jumping straight into
Yeah.
the creative as well.
The mindset and the culture really laid a foundation here in this
Yes.
case. Yeah. I want to talk about creative because I believe athletics actually took the lead on the creative side of it. And I want to hear about your experience from the enrollment seat of letting someone else have control over something that substantial. We're not good at that in the enrollment seat, I would say.
We are not. We are not. It's funny. I wrote in my dissertation. I was like, unfortunately, enrollment is like we're gatekeepers. I hate to say
Yeah.
it, but we operate as gatekeepers versus of like sharing the wealth. But really, it as you said, a lot of stress around giving up creative power. One, and then I think two, we all this was the first time we were working with each other, but we agreed like, hey we would be open. So I challenged myself, like, okay, let's be open. Let's think about how we can do this. And I'll add, and hopefully they don't take this the wrong way, but we're all divas as well. Like the whole, in a good way, like we just want the very best. We want it to be a Beyonce experience, and we want everyone. We just want to do our best. So the first round, we actually had central marketing design the first creative, and just it wasn't a bad design, it just did not speak to all of what we were trying to do.
Yeah.
So that was our first sort of moment of like conflict of like, we hate it.
That's
Please
hard.
don't be
Yeah.
mad, but we don't like it.
It just
Can
didn't
we?
hit. Yeah.
It did not hit. And we had 2 weeks before it had to go to production to be posted. So it wasn't landing. So we were like, okay, does admissions want to take it in-house? Does online want to take it in-house? And actually it was central marketing that said, hey, would you two be open to us just going to athletics and seeing if they would be open to doing this? And we were like, hmm, sure, that's a new spin on things. Like, let's
Yeah.
give it a swirl. And when we brought them in, I just like it was such a moment of woosah. I think they came in, they did deep discovery to try to understand our needs. They walked us through before they started designing the creative, they walked us through like 200 different scenarios because we could have went with Jason Kelsey and Travis Kelsey. We could have went with the Bearcat. There were so many different things we
Yeah.
could have done. And they sort of just showed us stuff and watched our reactions and really learned what we were trying to do, and then came back to the table with like 10 options that we were all in love with. And it was so hard to get down to one, but we finally got down to that one option.
It's really brave of all of you the way you work together. Truly, it is.
Yeah.
I'm come from a place where I think creative tension gets everything to a better place, but that opens everybody up to feedback that can be hard to hear. So bravo all the way around for everyone to be willing to sort of lose control or let go of control of things like that and receive all of that. I want to know about the impact since launching the Our City campaign. What are you all seeing in terms of student engagement, brand perception, anything in enrollment behavior? What has happened?
So with this billboard, and it's funny because even through the first activation, we were going to take the higher ed way and do a QR code and do a send them to a landing page. And I was shocked that across the board, we were all like, no, this is not about doing some fancy tracking. It's about building a brand like Disney and making people fall in love with us. So with that, we're just going to have to do some different things that might not always have to be tracked. So that was like one, which was a big deal because we're big about ROI. And then so two, we kind of agreed, hey, this is going to be the kickoff to what we're going to build out for the rest of this year. So we were like, we're going to see how this works. We're going to focus on planting the seed. This is the soft launch before the explosive launch comes over the next couple weeks and throughout the year. But what we are seeing though is it was so good they decided to put it in stores, and everyone has been buying the shirts, buying all of the campaigns. Alumni are calling in like, hey, the t-shirt that says Our City, can somebody send that to me? The comments that we're seeing across social media of even the community is just like, wow, like this is beautiful. One and two, UC is here. What is up with UC? We've seen a lot of a sense of pride in alum who live here because they have felt like, man, I went to school here and I live here, but I don't see nothing. But now from the highway, from all of the buildings, from the casino, from wherever you're at downtown Cincinnati, you can now see UC. I think it has really sort of it activated folks, which is what we were
Yeah.
hoping for. And I think over the next couple to 5 to 6 months, people are going to sort of see this begin to spread just throughout the airport, throughout downtown, through stores. So we're really thinking about that full integration. But I would say people are excited. Now, granted, the other schools, not so happy. They're kind of like, this is not y'all city. There's other schools here.
Uh, I'd say that's just more data that it's working. I mean,
Right, exactly.
who needs a QR code, by the way, anyway? Who needs a QR code? You got all kinds of
Exactly.
data coming in for this. You didn't need a QR code.
Exactly.
Tell me about some of the tactics and the pieces of this campaign that you think are going to speak most to the audience that you're in charge of, the prospective students on the enrollment side. What do you think's really going to set that up for success?
Yeah, so really my vision, and I've been at UC for just hit my year last month, but my vision has been how do we create UC fans in enrollment? The mom can be taking an MBA, dad can be taking a
Ah,
certificate, little sister can be in dual enrollment, little brother can be a first year student, and grandma can be in our retirement, pathway course. So how do we just get people engaged and stop talking to people trying to sell the institution? The people are the heroes. They are the agents of their journey. We're just here to help them connect the dots and fill in the missing pieces. So we have just shifted our programming that it is now all about the family. We have coloring books of Bearcats for 3-year-olds. We have special tracking for parents, special tracking for students. So we're really creating sort of this family affair type of enrollment experience so that regardless if you're enrolling, you're going to feel like you're enrolled, even if you're not enrolled, because you're going to have that much love and connection. So that's really been our focus tactic is let's create a model that recruits the whole family, that recruits the whole community instead of sort of these modalities, individual modality strategies. So that's probably the biggest tactic that we're looking at. And then we're also starting to have conversations with the incoming student freshmen, incoming class around do you like the C Paul or do you like when it says University of Cincinnati? Do you like, so we're also just asking them of like, if you had 30 seconds to pick which color resonates with you the most, what connected with you when you visited campus, what speaks to you about the city. And now we're starting to bring the city into our enrollment process as well, because you can come to Cincinnati and not have to visit our campus. You can come see Blink, which is like one of the world's largest light shows that happens downtown Cincinnati, and then just stop by and pick up a swag bag, right? So we're
yeah.
finding creative ways to recruit the family, to integrate the city and sort of scale that impact.
I did not know that this podcast would go in this student-centered direction, is what I have to say right now. That's actually so my dissertation, you were talking about yours a little bit. My dissertation is all in student-centered marketing. So how funny
Ah,
is that we've ended up here? Because I mean, we're talking about a brand activation. So I'm expecting to get a very institutional centered kind of conversation, DéRecco, and here we are in how student centered the decision making is. It's talking to the students to get their feedback. It's what you're doing in the Ubers, and then thinking about it in terms of engagement versus what we're saying to you. It's not about what do we want to say to you. It's how do we want to engage you. Kudos.
exactly.
This is amazing.
Thank you. And I think, like you said, that's what we have. If we can engage people a different way that makes them feel better or connected, everything else will happen. Even if that student doesn't come, they're going to go back home and say, I really enjoyed my UC experience. Someone's going to say, I never thought about UC. So like, it's like, focus on that relationship and how that student is in or that family is engaging with the brand, and everything else will sort of fall in place the way
Yeah.
it needs to.
Yeah, you're going to see those traditional KPIs. They're all going to be affected if you stay focused on the
Exactly.
family and word of mouth. That's really what this activation to me is sounding more and more like. You have this amazing creative, this sort of bold activation occurring, but it's all to get people talking.
Yes, exactly. You are correct.
All right. So if a vice president at another institution came to you and said, Was this worth it? What would be your go-to proof point that this way of thinking, because that's what this is. This is so much more than a campaign from what I'm hearing.
Exactly.
This is a mindset and a way of thinking. What would
Yes.
be your proof point that this kind of mindset is working and we should all be thinking this way?
I would say, while it's not a popular opinion, I would say look at what's happening nationally. Right now, and while it might not feel this way, the people, and we were just talking about this at Harvard, we are in a disruption phase similar to what we were with COVID. It's just a business disruption. And I don't think people realize that unless you shift some way, somehow, you will have to close your institution because we are an overpopulated market. And I think oftentimes we forget that at the end of the day, there is no mission without a margin. So we have to figure out how to continue to drive margin so that we could continue to serve students. So the thing that I would challenge is how is your institution going to stay competitive right now? Not by another email, not by adding another program, not by adding more recruiters, but strategically think through, do we own the market as much as we are perceived that we own it, right? Or an easier fix is just walk downtown. Walk to your local coffee shop that's a couple minutes away from campus and just ask a couple of the locals, how do you feel about my institution? Tell me what you know about the institution. You'll get some good feedback in real time. But I think our proof point, while it might not be a KPI, it was the alignment between these four divisions that I think is going to be the biggest proof point that drive the biggest impact than any small, quick 3% of the people clicked on a link, for 5 seconds to fill out an inquiry form. So I do think that proof of point is four divisions building out their strategy, their marketing strategies cohesively now versus operating as siloed divisions.
Yeah, it really was a concept that brought everybody together. That's not an easy thing to do in our space. So if someone else is another institution wants to launch a unifying brand campaign like this, where should they start? And what's one thing that you've learned that they absolutely can't skip in the process of doing this work?
So I think they should start with asking themselves, what is the art of the possible if I worked with X and fill in X with a department that you just are not working with or you're currently not leveraging the way that you could. And then once you fill in that X, what is the art of the possible? Like, what could really happen if we all got along and worked together? And what would that feel like and look like? So I would say start there because that will position you with your why. And then ask yourself why 5 times and say, well, why do I want to do this? Well, why do I want to do this? And you'll make sure you're not being reactive and get to kind of the root of what you're trying to transform, which in our case was how these four divisions work together. What I would say don't do or don't get caught up on is in the beginning, we knew we only had 3 weeks. So we started to sort of settle a little bit of like, well, we only have 3 weeks. Should we just go with this design? Because if we don't, we're going to miss out on 60 days of what we paid for. And you know what? We were like, we want this to be a Beyonce experience. So would Beyonce go to market and release something real quick? Or would she get it right and then hit them with a bang later? So we were just like, you know what? We'll eat the cost for the 3 months that we've paid. We started paying in January. This did not go up until late March, April. So we were like, it's okay that we lost out on a couple of dollars for a couple months, but the impact and getting the design right was more important than us walking away feeling like, because if we would have settled, we might not have came back to the table for future projects because we would have been like, I didn't really get what I wanted out of that experience. So seeing that, we were like, no, let's not settle. Let's not rush. Let's just do the work. So I would say don't rush, regardless if you've already paid, regardless if somebody's telling you you have to go to market tomorrow. We are not heart surgeons, so it does not have to go to market tomorrow. You can take your time to get it right.
Sometimes we do need that reminder. We're not brain surgeons, we're not heart surgeons.
Right.
But I love that advice. That is great advice. You have to have that big moment to launch it. You've got to get that
Absolutely.
moment right. Yeah. Well,
Absolutely.
DéRecco, thank you so much for coming on the show. This was a great
Yes.
conversation. I imagine everyone's Googling the Our City campaign right now to see all of the details.
Yes, please Google. And if you have any questions or ideas or thoughts or just like, how did y'all? Feel free to hit us up on LinkedIn or email. Either way, happy to chat.
Thanks to everyone who is listening. And if you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend and make sure to subscribe to the podcast. See you next time.